A day of significant meetings and big statements. Vladimir Putin signaled Russia's readiness to agree to a U.S.-backed ceasefire, while Donald Trump said that Greenland's annexation is likely to happen. Joining me now to discuss the latest is TVP World's Europe editor, Marcin Zaborowski. Marcin, thank you for joining me. There's
of course
definitely a lot happening. We just heard from Oz Chatterjee with the latest.
Yeah.
But let's start from the beginning. What happened in the Kremlin today, and what's the latest? How are we supposed to understand what happened?
Well, what we heard today from the Russians was something which looked like, an agreement caveated by the conditions, which suggested that it was actually a disagreement. Yeah? So, in reality, what President Putin said, it was yes to the ceasefire agreement, but then conditioned it in the way which makes it impossible for the Ukrainian side to accept. And these conditions include the cessation of the delivery of aid to Ukraine, military aid, the cessation of any kind of training, as well as promise not to mobilize. So in reality, that means, and pardon my French, but a kind of a castration of the Ukrainian defense efforts.
It seems like a very skilled manipulation tactic to use, to say yes, but actually trace it back and take it back to
That's exactly what it is.
No.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just like the language may seem promising for the American interlocutors because it says, yes, I like this this proposal. I think it's great. I think it's correct. These are the exact words that Putin used to please President Trump. He knows that President Trump very well responds to flattery. So, and he told him, your proposal is fantastic. But then he said, we need to eliminate all the root causes of this conflict to be here at the first place. And in Putin's words, the root causes is actually Ukrainian independence and the existence of Ukraine as an independent state. And then he talks about the specific instruments, meaning, the cessation of delivery of aid.
I would like to bring some of the headlines that came after the press conference that we've heard take place at the Kremlin. Putin, we agree to stop fighting in Ukraine, but it should lead to long-standing peace. These words come from a man who started this whole conflict. How should we read into this? What's happening next? What's in the cards?
Well, I think what we have in the cards now is the situation in which everybody wants to please the Americans, right? I mean, really, Trump holds the cards. That's the situation that we have. We had this disagreement in the White House between Ukrainians and the Americans. Not a very, great episode in the Ukrainian diplomatic history. And following that, the Ukrainians managed to turn the situation around because they agreed to immediate ceasefire on the condition that the military aid will continue to flow to Ukraine. And as we know, it stopped flowing. I mean, everybody in Poland, in Rzeszów hub reported that actually the delivery of aid did stop. Yeah. So Ukrainians managed to turn it around. The aid began to flow again. And then now Putin is saying, I like this ceasefire, but no aid, no military for Ukraine.
It's interesting when you said that it's everyone's trying to please the Americans and Mr. Trump is holding all the cards, because this is exactly what he actually mentioned only but some time ago when it comes to Russia, that it's Russia that holds all the cards. So that's an interesting way to put it. Another one, we will, this comes from Mr. Putin as well, we will agree next steps of the conflict taking into account developments on the front. In light of what's happening on the front lines, especially in the Kursk region, what we've heard from Oz Chatterjee, why do you think he's saying that? What does he mean by the developments in the Kursk region? Because we know that Ukrainians might actually fully withdraw.
Well, he wants to sell to his population the image of the reconquering of a piece of the Russian territory. He wants to say to the world that Russia retook what it lost. And he also wants to say that this is where the Ukrainians are threatening us. Ukrainians are this aggressive, threatening power. So he wants to project the world this image that he is not the one to start the war. He is defending Mother Russia against, Ukrainian fascists.
Let's jump into another one of those excerpts that we had from Mr. Putin. If U.S. and Russia agree on energy cooperation, then gas pipeline for Europe could be provided. How do you interpret these words, and what could they potentially mean for Europe?
We had some kind of unclarity about what exactly these words meant, what exactly was being said, and
there was definitely a discussion in the news.
How exactly it was being translated. So the understanding is that, if I understand correctly, that Lukashenko suggested that the West is now in a difficult situation. And then President Putin said, difficult situation means a pipe. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And then
so it's a play on words.
Yes, and then President Putin said, "Oh yes, and pipe. Yes, let's come back to the pipe and pipeline. And yes, if everything goes well, then we can institute the resumption of the deliveries of gas to Western Europe."
Do you think that Europe would be likely to actually take him up on that offer?
I certainly hope that no. But many times in the past we had a situation that some European business interests are very eager to go back to business as usual with Russia.
Well, as we look at this whole situation, we also heard from President Zelensky. We've had breaking news coming from Oz in Kyiv. And one of the things that really stuck with me was this preparing for a refusal. Vladimir Putin is preparing for a refusal. And that was on Ukraine's President Zelensky's Telegram account. Do you think that Mr. Trump is actually going to listen to President Zelensky and take his advice on what's been said today in Moscow?
I'm not so sure. Yeah, I'm not so sure because President Trump wants quick wins. The actions in the last couple of days look like that he might be pocketing some kind of a win. And Ukrainian president telling him in public that what may look like a win to you is actually not a win is a way of exercising a pressure on President Trump to change his tactic. And he wouldn't like it. I don't think he will respond well to that. So it's a shame that that wasn't communicated in private, that it was done as publicly as it has been done. Judging by at least the recent appearances and statements by President Trump, he does not like to be seen as a man acting under pressure. He wants to be seen.
He does not like to be cornered.
Exactly, and that's we see here an element of Ukrainian side trying to retake initiative and tell him this is not a win. You should not take it.
Definitely. There is a lot of pressure going on, a lot of emotions, obviously, and it's easy to understand where such statements are coming from.
Absolutely.
And I think this is something that we are definitely going to take a closer look at over the coming hours in our services. Marcin Zaborowski, thank you so much for joining me in the studio and breaking this down for our viewers. It was great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
And so this would mark the end of World News Tonight, but please do stay tuned because we have Adam Yasers on the record coming up in just a moment, so stay tuned.